40B. Let's take a fast run through. Um, Eddie Boilu on 40B1. Maybe it's really 40B2, top of the page. 40B2, top of the page. If you recall, we had this three-way argument in the Gemara. I'm going to get Mark into the room. Morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Okay, you look bundled very nicely.
Yeah, it's a little cold tonight. I think this is the last of it.
Okay, very good. As we said, everybody who comes to daven comes to learn when it's more difficult. The reward, of course, is greater.
Yeah.
So that's a positive way of looking at things. We said Iboilu Shemim Ala Tanakama. If you recall, we had the question according to the Tanakama. We brought a three-way dispute regarding the first opinion says in the Breita that you could bring water, place it facing a fire, not for the purpose of cooking the water, only for the purpose of taking away some of the chill, and therefore you would leave the water at a distance, a jug of water at a distance from the fire, that it will not be capable of getting boiling up, but you could do that with water to get rid of the chill. And second opinion says you could do the same thing. It says you could do that with oil, a jar of oil. And the third opinion says you can only do with oil if you do it in an unusual way. And
In an unusual way?
right, the third opinion says if you go ahead and the woman rubs it on her hand, and then goes against facing the fire, and then puts it then puts it on her son. It seems like very not direct, meaning he says you can't directly put the bottle of oil facing the fire. Rather, you have to put it on your body, and then the person on the body faces the fire, standing by the fire, and then they could take that oil that got warmed up while they're standing by the fire, and they could go ahead and put it on their child while it's warm. So it's not the meaning. It seems like Rashi says, because this opinion holds, to face the fire with a bottle of oil. That's the weekday way that's the way you do it during the weekdays, and that you can't do.
Right.
Therefore, if that's why he only gave the allowance under such a circumstance. So the Gemara wants to know, according to the first opinion, Tanakama, he spoke about water facing the fire. You're allowed to do that as long as it's not going to heat up to a temperature of cooking. But what does he hold? He didn't say anything about oil. What does he hold about oil? Um, so the Gemara says, meaning, does he hold the same thing by oil? Or does he hold like the third opinion about oil? You got to do it in a different type of fashion. Or does he have another opinion? He goes on record about water. So what does he hold about oil? So Rabbi Yosef, they both say that he holds that you could go ahead. Um, he would allow oil, even in a way, even in a different way than Rabbi Yehuda permitted oil. Meaning, if he holds oil is just like water, so then he's really agreeing with the second opinion. So, and we seem like there is an argument going on. There's three opinions. So the Gemara is going to see, he holds about oil that's permitted, even in a way, even when it's going to heat up, right? That's what we said on Friday. Even when it heats up, to a temperature of cooking, he holds there's no cooking by oil, right? Oil, once he says oil, we said Friday, since it could be eaten, since there's no great improvement, he holds those two opinions holds like teira, and you could go in and actually put the oil in the container facing the fire. And Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer L'Asura. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, no, the Tanna Kama talks about water. He would not allow oil. He will not allow oil, and the Gemara will explain more details about that. Rabbi Yosef Damatav Teira. Rabbi Yosef, they say that they both say Tanna Kama would agree that it's permitted to place the oil in the flask in the bottle facing the fire. Shemen afapi sheyat saletet bo. We said that oil, even if you reach a point that it's going to cook, that it's so that Ksava Tanna Kama, he holds it's mutter, it's permitted. Ksava Tanna Kama shemen ein bo mishum bishul. He holds shemen, as we said, oil is not subject to the laws of cooking. But Rabbi Yehuda says no. He says the opposite. The next rabbi, second opinion, holds Shem Yesh Mishum Bishul. He holds that there is subject to cooking, but the second opinion says warming it up is not enough to be cooked. It has to actually reach the level of heating point that if you would touch it, you would have to move your hand back, with the finger back because it's too hot. Warming up is not the level of cooking. The third opinion says that shemen yesh mishum bishul, oil is subject to cooking, and warming it up is considered cooking. That's the bottom line. That does the trick. That's all that's necessary. That's the sufficient improvement. And you don't even need to go ahead and cook it to reach that level of cooking for it to be the violation of cooking. Those are the three opinions in the Gemara, and two different opinions in the Amoraim. What does the Tanna Kama hold? Now the Gemara elaborates and explains. Rav Nachman Yitzchak said that the Tanna Kama will hold it's forbidden because shemen, because the Tana, he holds that the oil is worse. He holds even though it doesn't reach a cooking point, asur, it's forbidden. Because he holds oil is subject to cooking, and even warming up the oil, that finishes it. That's already. We had something early in the Masechta about certain type of fish that just by pouring the hot water on the fish, that prepares the fish, that makes the fish. That's like it's cooking. So then he compares the oil to that. And therefore, he says, Shemen yesh mishum bishul ve'efshero, the warming up zeh bishulo. It's cooking, and therefore you got to watch out. You can't even the allowance that you have by water facing a fire. You can take water. If you want to take off some of the chill of the water, and place it in a jar facing a fire. As long as that area where you placed it does not have the ability to reach cooking, you can do that when it comes to water. But he says you can't do that when it comes to oil. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Just warming it up, lo zeh bishulo. That's not cooking. Only if you actually reach its cooking point. The third opinion says shemen yesh mishum bishul. Oil is subject to cooking. Ve'efsheru zeh bishulo. And warming it up is its cooking. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, if he holds that warming up is its cooking, so the Gemara says, Rav Shimon Gamliel, Hainu Tanna Kama. The Rav Shimon Gamliel and the Tanna Kama are saying the same thing. Meaning, according to the second reading, according to the opinion of Nachman ben Yitzchak, that says that the Tanna Kama holds you can't, that the oil is subject to cooking. You can't even warm up oil. So he seems to be saying the same thing Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Shimon Gamliel says that you can't warm up oil. So the Gemara, and therefore Rav Shimon Gamliel says you can't go ahead and place you can't just take the oil and face the fire. You got to go in and put it on your hand, and then after you put it on your hand, then you stand in front of the fire. But Rav Shimon, so what's the difference? Rav Shimon, they're both saying that warming up, you can't warm it facing the fire directly. So the Gemara says, but it's true, they both hold you can't do it directly, but Rav Shimon has this allowance that if it's not in the usual fashion, he says you can't go ahead and and actually stand in front of the fire. But you can't place it, directly in front of the fire, even though it's only going to warm up one answer. But he allows you to go ahead and put it on your body and then face the fire, and then from that take it, put it on your child. So he allows klachayad. That's the difference between the Tanakama and the Rav Shimon Gamliel. Tanakama holds, first opinion holds, warming up oil is a problem, even if it doesn't get cooked. And it doesn't make a difference if you put it on your body and then you stand in front of the fire. You put it in the way, stand in front of the fire with the bottle, in the oil in the bottle, or it's on your body. It's called, he considers it cooking. Shimon Gamliel says, kalachayat, if you do with a shinoi, if you go ahead and you put it on the hand, the lady puts it on her hand, and then she goes and stands in front of the fire, that's allowed. So the commentaries ask, just because the kalachayat, if you really hold, so some explain, obviously, the Shimon Gamliel that says that you can't warm it directly in front of the fire, it's not because he actually holds that the warming would actually be a biblical prohibition of warming oil without reaching a cooking point. Because if he would hold that way, he shouldn't allow you to do it in an unusual fashion. We're not going to say, for instance, on Shabbat in a place where you can't carry. Okay, so put it in your sock, right? Take your key in your sock. Now, listen, if a person carries a key in a sock, that's unusual. You wouldn't be violating the biblical prohibition of carrying. I don't think it's normal to carry. Maybe people carry guns in their socks. I don't know. But I don't know what people carry in their socks. What do you say, Adam? Is it common people carry things? There's a normal way of carrying, like putting something in your sock? I don't think it's a normal way of carrying. But the person's not going to say, okay, I'm not carrying the normal way, therefore I should be able to do it. Unusual. But you have to say, most probably, that he holds that it's not really considered, even though, meaning he doesn't allow you to directly warm up the oil facing the fire in the jar, but he's not going to actually hold that really would be the biblical prohibition of cooking oil. That's what probably you have to say. Now the Gemara continues. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says, in the name of Shmuel, we are now, let's see where we are in the art scroll. We're on 40b2 on the right side, second column from the bottom. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Echad shemen ve'echad mayim. Both oil and both water. So now the Gemara now takes a position. Here's the rabbi, a later rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, and he takes a halachic position and he says, Echad sheman ve'echad mayim. Whether it's oil or whether it's water, yad saletet bo asur. If it reaches the level that your hand would pull back, if you touch it, your hand will back. We are on 40b2 on the right side, closing to the bottom right column. So if you place oil or water facing a fire, now of course there's no discussion of putting, morning Mark, Boker Tov. There's no discussion of putting water or oil on a fire directly. Doesn't make a difference if it's not gonna reach boiling point. It will reach boiling. Even if it doesn't reach boiling point, if it's on a fire, it looks like cooking, right? So there's no question. You will never be able to put something on the fire directly. Here we're talking about standing with it facing the fire. So he says, Echad shemen ve'echad mayim. Whether it's oil or whether it's water, yad saletet ba'asr. If it reaches the level of boiling that it's that your finger would pull back, that's forbidden. And ein yad saletet bo, but if it's not going to pull back, then mutar. Then you could go ahead and place the oil or the water facing that fire. And we said last time that many say that seems to be the halacha. That's only if you place that item in a place that never could reach on its own. Meaning it's not that, you know what, you can leave it there as long as you remove it before it reaches the level of cooking, because maybe you'll forget. Let's say you place it down, there's a fire here, you place it down on the table. Okay, I'm going to leave the water in the container as long as I take it away before it reaches boiling. That would be no good, because maybe you'll forget and leave it there right as too late. So therefore, we're talking about it's a distance. It's a distance away from the fire that it never will reach. At that spot, if you put this here, it never could reach. It's only enough adequate to warm it up a certain amount. That's the allowance. Now, when it comes to a food, a salad, we spoke about third cooked, half cooked. We spoke about the idea at what point does a person violate the Shabbat of cooking a food? If a person goes ahead and he put a food on a fire on Shabbat, he took a potato, put on a fire on Shabbat, then he realized a moment later he put the food on the fire that how can I do that? It's Shabbat. Or he put a kettle. We'll talk about kettle and say that's liquid. A salad, a potato. So as long as he catches himself before it reaches a third cooking, let's say third or a half, let's say it would be more strict, the third. If he on a blech, or even right, or let's say he forgot it. Whatever he did, made a big mistake. He put the food on raw food on some sort of fire. At what point did he violate the Torah prohibition? See, the second that he put it on the fire, really he didn't violate the Torah prohibition yet. If he didn't make the fire, he made it because it didn't cook yet. Morning asaf. See, it has to be that it can be consumed. It reached a level that at least someone could eat, that robber would eat it. Morning asaf. That's the matter. That some people what? The dog, not a dog, a right? A human being would eat it. So that's either a third morning asaf or a half. That is, it's not like Shabbat. If a person by mistake opens the light, you don't close the light. If he opens it, don't close it. It's done deal. Or he closed the light, he can't open it. That's a done deal. This is an interesting thing. If we're to actually put the food on the fire or on the blech, take it off. He did it. Take it off before it reaches that cooking point. That is the issue regarding cooking. But when you put, it's possible that food could have been, if you touch that food before it reached the third cooking, it could already reach the level that if you put your finger there, you would move your finger back. But the fact that it got heated up, that potato, now I can't, if I put my hand on the pit, I can move my finger back, but it's still not cooked yet. But when it comes to a liquid, that's when it comes to a liquid like water, like or like water and oil, that is, as long as it reaches that level of yad saletet, and it seems to be once that liquid reached that level, that's called it's cooked. Meaning we don't have this what when it's going to recoil automatically because it's too hot. So then it's not about a third cooking, half cooking. The water was a third cook. The water was we don't go. That's not the discussion of language that we discuss when it comes how to put in. That has to do with liquid. But when it comes to solid, we don't use that. It's not about hot enough to put. It's about actual third cooking or half. So that's just wanted to point out that point. The commentary points it out. It's a nice point. Now, so now the Gemara says, "Vehechi dami yatzaletet." Yes. Even though it was ready cooked, right? Can't recook liquid.
Let's say someone did recook the liquid about eating it or not eating it, and if there's solids in the liquid, like let's say a chicken, the liquid you surely can't take.
Right, the liquid he shouldn't because see you're asking a good question because it's it seems to me that the fact that we refrain from cooking after cooking on liquid is a stringency. Meaning it's not that it is there's certain things that are clear cut I can't do on Shabbat. Right? There's certain things I can't insulate food on Shabbat. There's certain things I can't that's called from the basic law, black and white law. But then there is certain things that are not, meaning it was not that this was the law, accepted law. It is actually a disagreement whether there's an argument whether liquids are also do liquids have the same rule as solid that it can't be double cooked. Can't once it was cooked, it can't be cooked. Even though in practice we restrict by liquids, it doesn't mean that is it's not meaning it doesn't mean that after the fact would we also be strict. So that would have to be looked up. Meaning I'm just showing you there is a difference. And now whether that difference will play a role and say okay, but the avad therefore it will be different about eating that food or not. That would be that would be, and then also your question about the solid that's in there. Would we say if this one act was wrong because of the liquid?
And then how it's liquid, because if you heat something, sometimes, like we have a dish, there's a little bit of liquid in it, but it's mostly a solid food.
Right. So in the Yalkut Yosef, he seems to say if it's very minimal amount, he's not concerned about that.
It has to be like soup.
It has to be something more.
Mostly liquid.
We could look at that. We could look that up, but I saw he said a little liquid he was not concerned about. If it's part of there's a solid dish and it's a little liquid together. Right, he wasn't concerned about it.
But I do want to answer the question of chicken soup.
Right.
Shouldn't do it, but now done. Can I have the chicken out of the soup, not take the broth? Just not
right. So the question that would be that one act within you did an act that you should not have done. The fact that right. So that would be again would have to part of it. We have to look at the original question as well.
They have people put it on.
Okay, it's a good practice that will make sure it won't happen again.
When someone eat it, could not eat it, could eat the solid from it, or we went into a whole
Okay.
thing, and I really didn't know the answer.
Okay, so maybe I gotta do some research on that. Interesting, but it's you know what? It's very good that that's a discussion at the Shabbat table. If I could say, not all Shabbat tables are discussing the halachic ramifications of things. Because then you get into a different issue, Mark. Because if we are strict that is subject to cooking, would we also say that if a Gentile did it? Because if a Gentile cooks for me something that's raw, right? I can't eat it, right? So now, but she didn't cook for me something that was raw or something that was cooked. A Gentile could warm something up for me. And we don't, do we ever find, I don't think we don't say that, watch out if you take an airplane meal that when they double wrap it, that no one ever, the Gentile's always heating up and no one ever said, oh, if it's liquid, it's subject to cooking after cooking. And then that would be because most probably when it comes to the law of cooking by a Gentile, what's the idea that a Gentile can't cook something that's raw for me? Because if it's raw, they're doing a great benefit to me, taking something that was raw, that wasn't edible, and now they made it edible. So now we're going to go ahead and say maybe I'm going to have a feeling of affection, appreciation, and closeness. The rabbis were concerned that social feeling you have might lead to eventually too much socialization and marriage and assimilation. But when the food was already cooked, the liquid was already cooked, already a great benefit. They don't know so that much. Even though it was, even if you'll say that on Shabbat, we'll consider it a new cooking, but they didn't go that far. It would seem that when it comes to say that now, I feel that what they did to me was such a great, because technically, it was already cooked. Most probably that would be no. Sorry, that's why that wasn't part of your question. Just throwing out an interesting thing to think about. How far would you go with cooking after cooking? But again, like I said, being that it's a stringency, that stringency didn't apply. Maybe didn't take it for, Shabbat was strict about it, but we didn't go that level of stringency when it comes to the Gentile doing it most probably. Already cooked, exactly, right. So now the Gemara says, "Vehechi dami." We're saying we're saying that if it reaches the level of Yad Saletet, that this liquid, if you put your finger on it, it would your finger would recoil. What is that level? Um, so he says, Amar Achava, Kol shekriso shetinok nechveit. If the stomach of a child would get burnt as a result. Now, the question is, what age of the child are we talking about? So we're saying like this: the child's skin is very soft, and it gets burnt very easily, which the size of an adult will not get burnt. And the Pri Megadim says that we're talking about a baby, not talking about a child, 5, 6. And we talk about a child, sometimes we talk about chinuch and an age of, what we talk about a tinuk, a child that could, but baby skin. Yes, 100%. What's the name first? Terra Esther but for the four Shalema. So this the child's skin is very tender, very soft. Because if you're going to tell me about a adult's skin, that it's going to all adults different. Every people have different skin, as they say, right? How much they can handle. Okay. But the child it seems that it is a general, very, very, very easy um, to burn. Now, it's not clear what is this temperature. There are many opinions. Um, some say you have to be strict if it's around 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, they bring on the commentary in the bottom. No, I'm in the Hebrew edition. Now let's see let's see in the English, do they bring different opinions? Um, we have to see what they bring it different opinions or not. They bring about the about the about what's the 14. No, they don't. Here they're not bringing different opinions. Okay, so that's also a discussion. Exactly what is that heat? Morning, Murray. What is that heat that he brings from? Someone says if it's 43 Celsius, which is around 109 Fahrenheit and above. Okay. Amar Rab Yitzchak bar Avdomi. Rab Yitzchak bar Avdomi says, Pam achas Nechnasti acha Rebbe lebeit hamerchas. One time, I went to Rebbe to the bathhouse on Shabbat, meaning, now we know we said you can't take a bath on Shabbat, but we said in the springs of Tiberia, the springs that are not cooked by heat, they're naturally hot. So we said that those springs, we said the rabbis allowed people to, so a guy wants to take a bath, that seems to play on Shabbat, that guy would have to go to Tiberia or use those Tiberia springs on Shabbat. So he said, I once followed Rebbe to the bathhouse on Shabbat, and it was those fountains of Tiberia. Ubikashti laniach lo pach shel shemen bambati. I I wanted to place for him a jug of oil, and there was a little pool, a bath there, in the baths of Tiberia. Um, there was and I wanted to put the jug of oil in that bath, and because he wanted Rebbe to be able to use it for him to use it. Now, for Amali, and he told me, and the Rebbe said, Tol b'klisheni. Take the water from the pool, from the bath, and put it into a klisheni. Don't then if you put the water into meaning because that's the original, the water that's in the bath is called kli rishon. That's the original water. If you take that water and you put it into a container, so now the water was removed from its heating source, so to speak, placed into a second container, and then you could put, you wanted to put the flask of oil into that. That's not going to heat up that oil that's in that container. Tov b'klisheni, because the walls of the utensil will cool off the water that's in the utensil, and then it's not going to cook up the oil.
Too much.
Right. It's not going to cook it up at all. That you have a problem of, because he's saying that kli sheni, we spoke about kli shlishi doesn't cook, but there are certain things that even a kli sheni won't cook, and therefore he says, so this is one of them. The kli sheni, the second utensil, if it's not the original source, won't cook at least oil that's in a container. Now, the same, and then you could do that. And I would presume, okay. Now, so they say over here, I mean, they quote from the Tosfot, that even though if a Kli Rishon, let's say a Kli Rishon only cooks if if it's enough to recoil, right? If it reached the heat,
It shouldn't be.
but
People know.
but
You go
okay.
in the hot tub, I can put my finger without recalling.
Yes,
Just put my whole body.
right. So you're saying if you're using the hot tub, but again, I'm putting my. So you're saying obviously it's not recoiling, right? Or else most people would get burnt.
Not boiling.
They're not boiling.
Not boiling.
Unless
Also not boiling 100%.
right.
Hot
So
tub's usually 104, very under 109. You could go in it, put your finger in it, sure. So this hot tub is not a recoil.
right. So you're saying what would be the problem if to put it directly? Because you're saying it's not going to because right.
The primary, this only recoils. The water in the hot tub was. They're saying the water in the hot tub is hot enough to recoil.
Yeah, but we're gonna see, the Gemara is gonna say that this opinion holds warming up the oil. It's, remember we had the discussion, warming oil, is it considered like cooking or not? So therefore, being that it's oil, so even if it's not gonna reach the level of fully cooking, the normal level of cooking, but the fact that it is warming up the oil, that's called cooking. Meaning, so that will answer your question, Mark. Because look, because he's just going to be warming up the oil,
Right.
because like you said, it, he wants to reach a temperature that's going to be warm. They're not looking to cook. They don't need to cook. They don't need to. They don't need to cook the oil that it reaches the level of cooking. But yet it's forbidden because it's oil. Because oil, like we said, there's certain things like certain fish that you don't have to cook. You don't need just by throwing the hot water on it, even if it's not going to be cooked. That's called cooking. So here also, remember the opinion that says that if you have oil, by just warming up oil, that's the cooking. That's like the cooking. Good morning. So that's why there's a problem to go ahead. Good morning. To go ahead and use this water of the springs of Tiberia to warm up this oil. So therefore, that's why he says if you want to go ahead and you want to warm up a bottle of oil, first take the waters of Tiberia, put the waters into a utensil, make the utensil, and now the walls of the utensil will cool off some of the heat that's in this utensil, and therefore that's good enough. Then you could go ahead and use this for to warm up, to take off some of to add some heat to this oil. Shema mina. So because see, the obvious question is, if you're saying the warming is good, if the warming is going to do the trick, it's called is the problem. So what does it help putting into a klisheni? What does it put into a klisheni? Into a secondary utensil? The answer is that really, even the one that holds, remember we said, even the one that says warming is considered cooking, it's not that it's actually on a Torah level cooking. Warming will not be a Torah level cooking of oil. Because remember we saw because then how could you do it? Like I said, you could do it with a shinoi, unusual way. If it's really called a cooking, it doesn't make, you can't do something in an unusual way if you violate the Torah law. Therefore, it's not really considered a Torah level law of cooking if you're just warming it up. So therefore, he allows you, as long as you do it in a klisheni, the secondary utensil. So not only, so it's like a rabbanon it's further away from the Torah, from resembling Torah prohibition. Therefore, he allows you. We'll see more tomorrow. We have to morning.
The other thing is you're not to warm. So why isn't it okay to be warm? It's not.
No, because oil, he holds oil is a problem of warming. Because oil is like that's the benefit you need just by warming. So you need, and he considers that like cooking in a sense. Good to see everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Murray, I started the process. I'm going to continue with. I'm going to follow up with the yes.
Reuven in the city.
No. In the building, the lobbies, in the building. What it's no in the building to carry in the building when if you can't carry in the street. We spoke. There's a problem.
Yeah.
How to we got to get to me within the building. Right? How to get from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to get permission from the manager that he has to rent out the rights of the hallways. That's what it would seem to be. But I spoke to one rabbi. I want to hear what people were involved in it. But no, that's not going to do enough because there's goyim here. There's goyim here, right? So you have to it seem like you'd have to rent out the rights of the hallway. Right. So we'll have to continue the process, see what more people say. Great day, Mark. I'm going to NYU, so take care. I daven with the boys and I learn with boys at NYU. Say it again? No, at undergrad.